Hi everyone, I'm Gordon Bonus with Daily Xtra. With me today is John Boyne, the author of the international bestseller, The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. Hi John, thanks for talking
Hello.
with us.
Good to be here.
You're no stranger to dark material. Many of your books are set in treacherous territory, the concentration camp, the trenches of World War I, hauntings of various guises. But your latest novel, A History of Loneliness, is about the sex scandal in the Catholic Church in Ireland. So this is dark and treacherous territory. Can you talk about the doubts you had before you approached it and how you overcame them?
To be honest, I didn't have a lot of doubts. I always find as a writer that when I set out to start a novel, my instinct tells me this is what I'm supposed to write next. And I don't plan out the novel, I don't really plot it in advance. I just start with an idea, a theme, a character, but I feel sure that I want to write this story.
You've written in The Guardian a very heart-wrenching piece about growing up gay in Ireland and the lessons that the Catholic Church taught you, lessons of self-loathing, self-hatred, worthlessness. You've also talked about the physical abuse at the hands of priests and the lay teachers, and inappropriate touching, all sorts of nasty goings on. How your journey to a healthier place, is that sort of what happened in Ireland overall then? Was it anger that was fueling it, or is it just a sense that they had nothing to teach anymore?
I think I'm at the perfect age for this story in a way, because by the time I left my teens, that was the point where everything was about to start changing. And of course, for a person, when you leave your teens, that's when you're about to start changing as well. When I was in my early 20s and I walked away from the church forever, wanted nothing more to do with it, that's not something a person in their early 20s would have done in my parents' generation necessarily. It just really wouldn't have happened at all. But I was filled with such anger, such vehement anger towards the church. It was almost uncontrollable at times. When somebody would say something positive about the Pope or something, I would really lose my mind. And I got to a place where I realized I had to confront all those things that had happened when I was a kid, both to me and to my friends. But I did not want to be somebody who spent their life feeling angry. That's just, I thought that's the final victory of the perpetrators of these crimes. I just didn't want that. I wanted to find my way through it. And maybe because I'm a writer, I'm a creative person, I'm able to pour all that into something. I poured it into my writing and ultimately into this book, which was cathartic in that way. But yeah, I think, here's another interesting thing about just that time period. 20 years ago, one of my Irish artist colleagues and friends, Sinead O'Connor, was in America and ripped up a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live and was vilified for it. Now there's a mural of Sinead in Dublin's Temple Bar with a sign underneath it saying, "Sorry Sinead, you were right all along." So, that's the way it's changed, I think, over those 20 years.
This is your first novel set in Ireland. Why was this the story of Ireland that you had to tell?
Well, I think through all those years, 15 years of publishing novels, it wasn't so much that I was avoiding writing about Ireland. The stories I was getting in my head were not ones set there. And most Irish writers do write about Ireland, but why should we? It's a big world. And in some ways it's a small world in that I've traveled around so much of it and there are stories to be found everywhere. So why should I have to localize everything? So I always said to myself that I wouldn't unless I had a good story. And when this came to me, when I had this idea, particularly thinking originally about the idea of the good priest, which was the opposite of what I had really felt about the priesthood, it just triggered something, and I thought I could analyse Irish society, the hypocrisies of it. I love Ireland. I'm really proud of being Irish, but it's like every country, it's flawed. It has its problems, but I still love it. And maybe by writing about it, I want to help do something to discuss this big issue. If I was having this conversation on Irish radio right now, the phone lines would be buzzing with people saying, this is just someone else, giving out about the church, trying to drag it down. And they're not rational about it. They're not balanced. They don't seem to care about the voices of the victims and what victims have gone through and the experiences, the difficulties people have had forming relationships in adulthood through the experiences of childhood. They just hear somebody condemning the church. And that's not what I've been trying to do on this journey with this book. You know, I've been actually trying to be balanced about it, to think about the loneliness of the priesthood itself. You know, a lot of priests talk to me about that in my interviews with them, about how difficult it is being out in the community and then going home to an empty house. Because, of course, the real flaw at the centre of the priesthood is the celibacy issue, I think. You know, if it wasn't for the celibacy issue, a lot of these things would never have happened. You know, it's crazy that's still in place. The primal urge of us as human beings, the thing that got us here in the first place, is something which is denied to priests. And the notion to me that you cannot be better at your job if you are loved and if you are loving makes no sense.
Speaking of loving, I hope you don't mind bringing your husband for a second. You dedicated the Absolutist to Con, your husband.
And I think about 3 other books on the way.
Okay. I just wanted to know if you are married, because same-sex marriage is not allowed in Ireland, but speaking of changing viewpoints, that's coming up.
Strictly speaking, we're in a civil partnership.
Okay.
But the marriage referendum is happening in May, and it looks like that's going to pass fine. But once we did the civil partnership ceremony, we did it like a regular wedding with, you know, the band and the food and the enormous expense. We just said we're married, and it's a word, it's a feeling, it's an emotion.
And did you ever think that they would come when marriage would be allowed in Ireland?
No, I didn't. And I'm almost surprised that it's so quick in a way, because at the moment the polls are saying 72% in favour in May. Now that will tighten close to it. But it would be pretty surprising now if it doesn't get passed. And it will be the full 100% equal rights. And this is a country that still, about 25 years ago, homosexuality was illegal. So, you know, for a country like ours to make that kind of change is really quite extraordinary, I think. I feel quite proud of that.
Well, congratulations on A History of Loneliness and all the work that we're about to see this year.
Thank you.